So, were you ready? All right, so good morning, Ready to Rush Triathlon Duathlon Club. This presentation is about the bike, right? So a few tips ahead of the actual setup and all that sort of thing. First of all, right, it's Triathlon Duathlon. The, common component in there is a bike. So yes, you have to bring a bike to the race. We can all talk about, there's lots of older triathletes out there that would loan you a bike. We can do all kinds of fun stuff. There's bike shops around here that would loan you bikes for the race day. And we can talk about getting someone a bike if they want one. Again, I always advocate that find something in your garage, talk to your parents. My first triathlon bike hung in the garage for 30 years before I even actually used it, right? So don't go crazy and spend a giant pile of money getting a bike. Another issue here is that safety. So right, I tell everybody there's only two kinds of cyclists, those that wreck and those that will. There's only two choices. So I always talk about having, this is the most important piece. Obviously there's other important ones, but you gotta have a helmet. Don't even look at your bike and if you plan on riding it without a helmet. There's tons of other safety issues we'll get into, but this is the most important thing. Obviously making sure your tires have air, right? Mr. Mason, tires have air.
Get that camera.
Mr. Yeah. Greasing up the chain, bike maintenance, all those things, but this is the most important thing. We'll talk about how to wear it correctly at another session, but you got to wear the helmet, you got to have it on. Again, I've wrecked 4 times significantly. Twice I was going 0 and my helmet was completely shattered. And I was going 0, I just fell off the bike. All right, so again, don't ever forget there's only 2 kinds of bikers. So every single time you go out, you have a chance of wrecking. So have a cell phone with you. There's something called road ID. So, because literally we've had athletes in our clubs over the years, they disappeared. We couldn't find them. When they were on the road back there somewhere, and we had one lady actually went over a bridge and she was completely trashed, out cold. When the ambulance got there, she had a road ID on with an emergency number, and that's the only thing that saved her life. She was attacked by a dog. So the other thing is you live in Muncie, Indiana. So take advantage of the Cardinal Greenway. Honestly, I don't ride the roads at all anymore after all these years of doing this crazy stuff. I will walk my bike to the Greenway. I will drive my bike to the Greenway because it's way, way safer. You literally live in the most safe place in Indiana, in my opinion, to ride a bike because we have the Greenway. Or you can choose to be on the roads in Delaware County and Muncie, which is probably the most unsafe place. So use the Greenway. So injuries. So there's 2 really big injuries in cycling. One is, again, head injuries because you don't have a helmet on. And the other injury is your knee. So we're going to talk about the proper bike fit here at some point, but knee injuries because you're riding what's called knee flare. And what that looks like is if you come up behind someone and their knee is popping out, that means their seat is at the wrong height. You're supposed to be riding with your knees in, right? Not out. Knee flares like that. That means you're riding on this out here, and that is really bad for you. You'll go to the doc and he'll say, what'd you do? And you say, well, I've been riding my bike a lot. And he says, well, your seat position might be off a little bit because your knee is completely trashed on the outside, and that's called knee flare. So we'll show you how to set this up correctly so that you can ride it properly. Clothing. So clothing's a really big deal too. Again, these are Pearl Izumi cycling shorts. And as I've told everybody over the years, this is what's called a chamois on the inside. There's all kinds of ways of taking care of these and all that sort of thing. But literally, there's no point in buying a bike and riding a bunch without cycling shorts. Believe me, 10 minutes into your first ride, 10 miles into your first ride, and you don't have cycling shorts on, you will totally regret it. And the first time you put them on, you'll be like, holy mackerel, this is the real deal. One of the gifts I got early in my career was my brother was a cyclist. And just out of the blue one day, I get this package from him, and I'm like, what's this? And he said, these are my cycling shorts. I never wore them. They're brand new. And I even rode them indoors. I ride them indoors as well because it's just so much easier on your tush. Obviously, jerseys, helmets, gloves, we'll get into all that kind of stuff at another session. I always ride in gloves, right? Because the bike is really hard on your hands, and there's no point in having your wrist and your elbows and stuff starting to hurt in the back of your neck. The more pressure you have in the palm of your hand, it transfers all the way up. A couple times I actually forgot my gloves over the years. I literally have pairs all over the place, just in case I forget. But a couple times I actually rode without gloves on, and I was like, I think my hair is gonna fall out of the back of my head because it tightens up everything. You have a nice pad on those gloves. But again, the gear is really important. So let's talk about bike fit, and let me see if I can scoot this around. All right, look, so this is an indoor bike, right? But one of the most important things on here is your seat height. And so we can talk about that. Let me scoot this around so you can see what I'm talking about. So look, this is kind of set up like a triathlon bike because it has a little bit of a bar up here. And I always bring a towel and do all that kind of stuff. But first thing is, see the clips on here? They're there for a reason. One of the most important things about cycling as well is protecting your knee, right? So if you don't use the clips on the bike, your ankle starts doing one of these numbers while you're cycling along, just a bike without any pedal at all. And that's really bad too, because as you wiggle your ankle, and you don't even realize it sometimes, as you pedal, if you use it wrong, now you're not only wiggling your heel, but you're wiggling your knee as well. And again, we talked about that being the second most common injury from head injuries is knee flick. So I always, and people just look at me like, what are you doing? I always make sure my feet are in here tight, right? So now my feet are in here tight, and we'll talk about how to pedal a bike at some point, right? See how my knee is all the way down? Nick, if you want to come over here to the side now, and you can see the seat is too tall. I can even feel my tushy going back and forth. That is not good. The idea is to have your knee, and I'll adjust this. The bad news for most bikes, indoor bikes, is it's a notch. It really should be a slide, but there's a reason why they do it that way. So I'm gonna drop this one. And again, setting it up correctly for your geometry is super important because there's no point in having it too low. Guess what happens when you're riding it too low? You're riding on your patella. That's really painful. I can't tell you how many people I've gone up to over the years and they go, hey, does it hurt right there? And I touch their patella and they go, oh, that's all. I go, dude, you've been in here for like 2 weeks riding it wrong. Well, why didn't you tell me before? I said, well, look, dude, I just can't go around telling. Don't ride it too short because then you're riding on your kneecap. That's part of the problem with this being a notch, is it's not exactly to your geometry. Again, when you get an outdoor bike and you get to a bike shop and they set it up and we'll talk about bike fit. We might actually go see one of the foremost bike fit guys in the United States. Actually lives in Chesterfield. He's a super neat guy and he totally knows what he's doing. USA Cycling uses him to set up their athletes. Super cool. Ken is the man. So, see where my knee now is? That's a little bit high, just a tick, but when I bend over a little bit, but see how my knee is now not going all the way down? Much better. The most important thing is to have your foot tucked in here tight, the seat at the right height, and then your tushy all the way back. That's why the seat is designed that way. So you're not actually riding on the wrong thing, you're riding on your hamstring on the outside here, right? And down a little further. So see how I'm pedaling? This is proper bike fit right here. Again, it's it's not perfect. See how I'm keeping my knees in? That's why they literally make top tubes. So there's a little groove on it, right? So the top tube on the bike is this piece right here across the top. The pro bikes, it's a little bit fatter under the seat and it's a little bit fatter under the bars, but it's kind of skinny up here and there's a little groove in it. So they can literally ride with the knees almost touching. If you watch the guys in the Tour de France and pro cyclists and they get a front-on view, you can see where they train their bodies to be within 2 millimeters of that top tube, because the more their knee is in like that, right, the more powerful it is. And you can sit in these things and pedal, and then you start getting in really better form and you pedal in the same tension, and you'd be like, oh yeah, the more my knees are in, the more efficient I am, the faster I'm going, yada yada. The other most important thing is not to ride with your calf. What do? Swim, bike, run, right? Bike, run, bike. Who wants to use their calf the entire time when you're cycling? Because you got to get off and use that bugger, as some of the, there's a couple people in this room that have done a triathlon, as some people would tell you. You can't run when your calf is toast. So you got to learn to keep your heel flat. So see how my heel is not moving at all? The way to learn how to do that is to learn how to pedal correctly. We can have a whole class on how to pedal correctly. It is hard to learn, but once you learn it, you never forget it, and you realize, I don't know how the heck I rode a bike like that before. See how my heel is nice, and my calf is not flexing hardly at all. I'm literally using all quad, all hamstring, all glute. I'm trying to rest my calf as much as I can. That's one of the technical advantages that Lance Armstrong had when he was younger. He was a triathlete, he was a swimmer. Somebody, when he was a teenager, taught him how to ride a bike right. So he shows up at the national championships in 1992 and breaks the 40K time trial national record during the bike. The coach for the US team was there, who I know, and he's on the phone, payphone back in the day, going, this kid just broke, and I'd never seen anything like it. But he was riding in a smaller gear because the triathletes taught him how to ride in a smaller gear and pedal faster, right, and pedal efficiently. So when he got off the bike, his legs were totally fresh, and he hit the gas and he beat a bunch of pros, and he was 17 years old.
But he was doping. But he was doping.
Not back when he was 17, then. All right. So there you go. Good fit. Feels nice and comfortable. What I'm always doing when I'm riding is I'm making sure my tush is back and my knees are in. So when I teach a cycling class, I'm always going knees in, tush back, knees in, tush back. You got to think about it, right? Same thing in a race. I'm always thinking about proper form. I'm feeling comfortable. There you go. Let's see, what else? So that's kind of like an intro to the bike. Make sure you're set up correctly. Use the clips. Make sure your foot's nice and tight. We'll talk about what pedal stroke is supposed to look like, but it's actually supposed to be a coat hanger, right? When Lance got to the tour, most of the pros from that era and back were mashers. And what a masher is they're basically taking a clock face, right? So a masher starts at 12 and just rockets down to about 4:30, and then lets up and his foot comes back up. So the other leg is mashing, because it's opposite, right? He's just mashing the gear. The pros, in Lance's era, the pro triathletes figured out, right? When you mash, you invariably use your calf, because you're just pushing like crazy, right? And you're in a really high gear. Again, in the cycling world, there's basically the 53, the big ring, the 42, and then some guys ride a 33, just depending on how super hilly it is. But most triathlon bikes have a 53 tooth front sprocket and a 42, right? So all the pros in the cycling world are riding a 53 up, down the mountains, doesn't matter, they're just going like crazy, because they're just mashing. Triathletes, and now most of the tour guys, learn to ride in a coat hanger. So they're pushing down like this, they're pulling back, and they're pulling up. Now again, their calf is staying still, right? They're not doing this, and they're doing, and then they're like, and they're lit. No, the calf stays, the heel stays like this, right? It's about 20% more efficient. Or for a triathlete, it's everything, right? Because again, by the way, I've made every mistake there is. My first season, I mashed the crap out of it, because I thought that, it's the year I grew up, and I thought all you did was just pound that gear. It was more studly to be in the 53-13 and go by these people. It was actually the other way around. They were going by me because they knew how to pedal and I didn't. You got to be in the big gear, because you're a big guy, and you got to, no. It's being the 42. And again, these back here are all numbered as well, right? Being the 42, 18, 19, and now you're going really efficiently. And all of a sudden, whoa, wait a second, this is the whole idea that when I get off the bike and I feel like somebody shot me in the calf, because I can't even jump, right? I can't even hardly move. So that's kind of how to properly ride a bike. Questions from anybody? Mason, do you want to ride a mountain bike in the middle of a duathlon?
Yeah,
Okay.
I already did that, so.
Mason already did that. So a tidbit at the end here, I want to remind everyone, as you guys get out there and we talk about Raider Rush, there's also relay teams. So again, it's super fun for people that are injured or don't necessarily want to swim bike run bike run. We can build relay teams in the club as well. So there's mixed relays, which is boys and girls. There's all girl teams, there's all guy teams, there's family teams. A lot of races do a lot of fun things to get people out and involved in the sports. It's gonna be super fun. So we're gonna decide which race is gonna be like our A race for the year. There might be a couple of them, an A race and maybe a B race next summer. But we can talk about building family teams. So if somebody in your family wants to do the swim, somebody wants to do the bike, somebody wants to do the run, and then you do the whole thing, super fun. But the relay teams are a great time. And again, in a sprint, try and do, it's really short, 400-yard swim, 10, 12-mile bike, and a 5K. Or the do, which is a 1-mile run, 10, 12 bike, and a 5K. We can build some teams and have some fun with that. And it's a lot of fun to have everybody there. And the relay teams can be super cool. All righty. Nick, you got all that?
Yep.
All righty. Questions?